Stranger, stranger. Now that's a weapon.
Hello and welcome to Gun Theory. Today we're taking a look at the Chicago Typewriter in Resident Evil 4. So in real life, this gun is based on the M1A1 Thompson submachine gun, and we'll be judging the Chicago Typewriter on three major categories: appearance, performance, and general circumstances. Let's jump right into appearance. So out the gate, we can see that the charging handle on this weapon is on the right side of the receiver rather than on the top. This tells us that it is for sure based on the M1A1 model of Thompson because all of the earlier models had the charging handle on the top of the receiver. If we look at the left side of the gun, just above the grip, we can see an oversized little bit sticking out. This would be the safety switch, which you would move back and forth for safe or fire, which does look sort of like this in real life, only this is way oversized. Overall, this version of the Typewriter looks mostly like the M1A1, but let's take a look at it when we have the Mafia outfit on Leon. We can see that there are some substantial changes on the barrel and fore end. We'll notice the barrel is no longer smooth, it has those cuts in the rear of the barrel, and instead of a horizontal foregrip, we have a vertical grip now. These are both features of the 1921 and 1928 models of Thompson that are not present on the M1A1. Yet, that charging handle is still indicative of an M1A1. And moving rearward on the Mafia style of Thompson here, we can see a big honking drum magazine. So this gun went through some substantial development changes when being adopted by the United States military for World War II, one of which being that they removed compatibility with drums on the M1A1. Yet, this is still an M1A1 with a drum that wouldn't normally fit. And we can also notice here that those rear sight wings, they're placed well, but there's no rear sight in between them. So we're aiming solely with a laser sight, and Leon's not using his actual sights at all because he has no rear sight. When firing the Chicago Typewriter on both versions, we'll notice that the gun is actually firing from a closed bolt, meaning whenever you shoot, the bolt is forward, and then it cycles rearward and goes back forward, ready to shoot again. All versions of the Thompson submachine gun fire from an open bolt, which means that when your gun is ready to fire with a Thompson, the bolt is actually to the rear, and when you pull the trigger, that bolt slams forward, strips a cartridge out of the magazine, fires it, and then comes back. And it'll either keep doing that till you let it off of the trigger, or it'll just stay locked back, ready to start shooting again. Overall, I would say that the appearance for this gun is rather lacking. Now, let's have a look at performance. Starting with the recoil, let's look at full auto fire. We can see that the gun does beat up Leon's shoulder quite a bit, as we would expect, but notice how the laser suddenly disconnects from the gun, and so the gun is pointing upwards during recoil, yet that laser is still pointing maybe from the stock or something. This is not at all what you can expect from firing a Thompson in full auto, or really any other submachine gun for that matter. Full auto fire is simply not that accurate and can't be controlled so easily. We'll also notice the fire rate, which is rather slow, and even seems to slow down at some points in the game. I'm not sure if this is some sort of system to avoid lagging from extensive fire or an unintended bug. While the M1A1 did have a reduced firing rate because of the lack of a cuts compensator, it still wasn't quite this slow. Okay, let's look at the damage. This gun is very powerful in-game, with a firepower of 10. If we remember the Red 9 that we've already looked at, it had a firepower of 6.5, where the damage is based on the 30 caliber Mauser pistol cartridge. The 30 caliber Mauser pistol cartridge can have an expected muzzle energy of about 440 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, whereas the 45 ACP fired from a Thompson can achieve something like 615 foot-pounds. Using the energies, the high damage on the Typewriter would seem to check out. I think that this damage is well chosen. Overall, I think that the performance is also quite lacking. Now for the general circumstances. Does it make sense that this gun would be available in Spain in the early 2000s? Well, as we discussed with the Red 9, many civilians were afforded opportunities to steal captured weapons during World War II from both the Axis and Allies. The Thompson was used quite prominently by most of the Allied forces, so there are likely Thompsons still today hidden away in civilian hands in Spain. So we're gonna say that that checks out, but is again very illegal. And going just a little bit further, let's consider our beloved mysterious merchant. If we were a Spanish citizen in possession of an illegal submachine gun, if we ever wanted to get rid of it or trade it for some other illegal gun our neighbors may have had, the merchant in this game is the perfect person to help facilitate this sort of black market exchange. And a final note on general circumstances, this gun is called the Chicago Typewriter. That name refers to the Thompsons that gangsters used in places like Chicago in the 1920s and 30s. We don't really think of the World War II military Thompsons as such, since there were substantial changes between the M1A1 and the previous models. If they wanted the name to match, I think they should have depicted a 1921 or 1928 model of Thompson submachine gun instead. Both of those models were compatible with the drum magazines that we think of with gangsters and see on Leon's Mafia outfit, and were just generally the Thompson versions that those gangsters used. Overall, the inclusion of this gun was a little bit goofy as a sort of unserious joke considering the Mafia outfit that Leon gets with his gangster's Thompson, the Chicago Typewriter. While the M1A1 is the version that would most likely have ended up in Spanish civilian hands, it was clearly not given a whole lot of serious consideration when including it in this game. And for this reason, I'd give the Chicago Typewriter a realism score of 35%. I'm happy that they included it, but it definitely was more of an unserious choice paired with the cool factor of a Thompson submachine gun. And of course, the infinite ammo did not factor into the score here. But I hope you learned something. If you like this sort of content, please like, subscribe, and maybe even consider becoming a patron of this channel on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.